The global economy was already on edge, but over the last few weeks, tensions in West Asia reached a boiling point. We were looking at severe economic shockwaves and the looming threat of nuclear escalation between the US, Israel, and Iran. Then a major headline broke the tension. The United States and Iran had agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. The credit for pulling the world back from the brink didn't go to a traditional superpower. The praise, from European capitals to Washington, went to Pakistan, a country currently wrestling with severe domestic fuel shortages and a crippling economic crisis. On paper, this makes zero sense. Nations struggling to keep their own lights on rarely step in to halt conflicts between heavily armed global powers. To understand how we got here, we have to look at who usually handles these crises. For years, Qatar has engineered its foreign policy around being the world's neutral ground. They hosted the US-Taliban negotiations and even provided a table for Russia and Ukraine to talk. That diplomatic immunity evaporated when the current conflict heated up. Iranian strikes landed dangerously close to the US Central Command's Al Udeid airbase, which sits right inside Qatar. Overnight, the host became a potential casualty. Realizing they were now a physical target in the crossfire, Qatar officially washed its hands of the mediation process on March 23rd. The sudden exit of the primary mediator left a gaping hole in global diplomacy. Exactly 24 hours later, Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif stepped into that void, announcing his country's readiness to broker peace. The loss of Doha meant the West had to find an immediate replacement. That desperation forced them to rely on a highly unconventional substitute. Why would both Washington and Tehran look at Pakistan and agree they were the right fit? It comes down to their specific geopolitical resume. As the only Islamic nation with a nuclear arsenal, Pakistan carries a level of authority within the 57-nation Organization of Islamic Cooperation that few others can match. They also execute a careful diplomatic balancing act. They maintain long-standing military ties with the United States, but when Iranian leadership suffered casualties, Pakistan publicly condemned the attacks, securing a soft corner with Tehran. They were the only player left on the board capable of delivering American demands without outright offending Iranian sensitivities. But Pakistan wasn't acting purely on its own authority. Behind closed doors, they were operating as a dual proxy for two competing superpowers. First, look at Beijing. China has a $400 billion oil purchase agreement tied up with Iran. To keep their economy running, they need the Persian Gulf to remain open and safe for transport. The conflict also directly threatened China's Belt and Road Initiative, specifically the billions invested in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which anchors at Pakistan's Gwadar port. To protect these lifelines, Beijing used Islamabad to pressure Iran. Meanwhile, the United States saw a convenient back channel. American leadership used Pakistan as a diplomatic mouthpiece, allowing them to firmly communicate their terms to Iran while maintaining a safe, indirect distance. This entire arrangement highlights exactly why India was absent from the negotiating table. While India has relationships with both Israel and Iran, their independent foreign policy means they operate on their own terms. New Delhi does not play the role of a subservient proxy for either Washington or Beijing. Washington and Beijing were essentially using Islamabad as a buffer, turning a supposed Pakistani triumph into an exercise in proxy control. The strategy produced immediate results. While European capitals sent public thanks to Islamabad, New Delhi found itself sidelined from the regional dialogue, a notable shift given Prime Minister Modi's recent diplomatic efforts in Israel. But the backroom deal had a glaring structural blind spot. The core terms of the ceasefire explicitly dictated that Lebanon would remain safe from any incoming attacks. The agreement ignored a foundational conflict. The Israeli government does not recognize Pakistan as a sovereign state. You cannot enforce a ceasefire when the central architect of the peace deal is a nation that one of the main warring parties refuses to acknowledge. And that reality caught up to them immediately. Almost as soon as the multi-nation ceasefire was celebrated on the world stage, it was violently shattered. Flatly ignoring the terms brokered through Islamabad, Israel launched deadly strikes directly into Lebanon. Those strikes resulted in over 50 casualties. In a matter of hours, weeks of intricate proxy negotiations were rendered entirely useless. Superpowers can use smaller nations to pass messages and temporarily patch over a crisis. But until there is mutual, direct recognition among the people actually firing the weapons, peace is just a headline waiting to be broken.